Hello, my friends. This is Lynda Lippin, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Hello, my friends. It's your host, Lynda Lippin, and welcome back yet again to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Over the course of this past weekend, I was reading just an interesting question from somebody, which was whether a podcaster could take each Pilates exercise, and I'm going to do that with the mat, and just break it down. Basically have an exercise or two per episode and just break that exercise down. And I thought, that's kind of fun. And that's the kind of shit I like to do. So here we are, starting with the 100. Now, some people think the 100 is a really shitty exercise. I'm going to tell you that. Some people think that the 100 automatically leads to neck and shoulder tension, that you're up in forward thoracic flexion for too long, that it's hard to coordinate the arms and the legs and get the breathing done. But frankly, that's the whole point of doing the exercise, right? Is to get that coordination and work through some of what's making that exercise hard. Now, I'll talk a little bit today about kind of the fundamentals and some prep work that you can do to address some of the issues with the 100. And I'm going to talk about ways to add modifications and variations to this exercise. Please know that I am actually a fan of the 100. I like the 100. I do the 100 every day. I have all of my clients doing the 100 in some version. And I see no issues, frankly, with that exercise at all. And even though a lot of us hate it, for me, it's kind of I love to hate it, okay? And it's part of contrology. And it shows up, a version of it, on just about every single piece of the Pilates apparatus, okay? So let's just kind of start with the mat version. As you guys know, the 100 generally is done on your back, okay? It's on your back with your feet down on the mat and your head down and your arms by your side. That's where you start. In the full version, like the most advanced version, according to Joseph Pilates himself, you tilt your pelvis back a little bit, squeeze your legs together, lift your legs to basically eyeball height at the same time as you curl up your head and your ribs, reaching your arms long past your hips, kind of closing that gap a little bit of the lower back, and then you commence pumping the arms, big pumps up and down, breathing in for 5 and out for 5. Okay. Most of us aren't doing the 100 that way. Most of us aren't teaching the 100 that way. So what most of us do is we bring our knees into the chest, right? We make sure the sacrum is down and heavy. We curl up the upper body. We make sure that the bottom edges, bottom tips of our shoulder blades are still on the mat, and we can open our collarbones and breathe. And then we commence the arm pumping. We start to straighten the legs up towards the ceiling, and then we start to lower the legs away from the body until we hit, the point where it's a huge struggle to keep our backs down and supported using our abdominals. And we basically build it from the small shape into the bigger shape, okay? There's a lot going on in the 100, okay? We're up there for 100 counts of breath, which isn't quite 90 seconds, but, we're up there for close to a full minute, if not more. You are coordinating the lift of the upper body and the legs at the same time without trying to kind of without doing a severe C curve or pushing your lower back into the ground. Okay, you're keeping the back supported and stable on the ground without pushing it down. All of the abdominals are working here because there is so much going on with the breath. The arm pumping helps work the side and back of the rib cage and the shoulder. So you're then looking at your rib cage muscles, you are looking at your back muscles, you are looking at a little bit of the triceps, you're looking at that work. Intercostals are working, teres is working, your lats are working a little. There's a lot happening front, side, and back of the body. The inner thighs are working, your legs are squeezing together. If they're not straight and squeezing, your heels are squeezing together, so you're still getting that level of inner thigh work, and you're coordinating the arm moving with the breath. Okay, so all in all, this is pretty much a full body exercise. Okay, there is no part that is not getting some work and some movement in what is a relatively contained exercise. That's why the 100's done at the beginning of the series, because it really does, it warms up the body. It lets you know how your neck's feeling. It lets you know how your breath is going. It lets you know how tight or loose your back is, how your shoulders are, how your hips are. And you're also getting really good work through the abdominals. Once again, the front, back, and side. You're getting work through the pelvic floor. You're getting work through the legs. You're getting work through the hip flexors as well as the leg extensors. And it's just a beautiful thing. So we have the 100 like that on the mat. Then we also have the 100 on the reformer. And if you're on a classical reformer, you're usually on all 4 springs, possibly 3, but usually all 4 right after footwork. And the reason for that on a classical, on a Gratz or Pilates Designs or Techno Pilates Reformer is that there are no ball bearings in the wheels. So once you push forward into that heavy spring, the carriage kind of sticks a little and stays there. So then you're able to then work the rest of the body. Now, obviously, if you're doing it on the reformer and your spring is underneath, your strap is coming from behind you, you are pushing weight through your arms and your upper body, right? So that's going to give you a significant amount of work happening now in the upper body just to hold things steady and stable. It can be a little bit harder to get the arm movement, keeping the shoulders stable, and again, coordinating the whole extravaganza of the exercise. You can also do the 100 on the Cadillac or the spring wall or the tower, depending on, what your studio looks like. And you can do the 100 there in a number of ways. You can use the arm springs, right, with the arm springs behind you. And again, just pressing forward the same way you would on the reformer. But it's a little bit harder actually on the Cadillac because the springs are above you. And they're separate springs and they can move a little bit more. So, it once again can be a little more difficult to keep the bottom edge of your shoulder blade heavy on the mat. It can be a little more difficult to keep the arms straight and really get some good movement at the shoulder. But once again, it's the challenge. It's the challenge and the slight difference that can make it interesting. You can also use leg springs for your 100. Mari Windsor used to make me do that on occasion because I'm strong and I could, and she knew it would be good for me. And obviously the leg springs are a little bit heavier than those arm springs, so you're getting a little more work in that push forward. But the spring is also a little bit longer, right? So that changes things. You can also do it using the rollback bar. Pulling the rollback bar down towards your legs and pumping it there. Conversely, you can use those springs for assistance in keeping the upper body up by just facing the other way, having the arm spring or the rollback bar in front of your body, grabbing them and allowing them to assist you in the roll up of the upper back. What can be difficult here is, again, controlling the spring and not curling up too high, so that, again, you're not curling all the way up to your lowest ribs and lower back. You're still wide across the bottom edge of your shoulder blade and your collarbones on that mat. Okay. You can also, and you can do this on the reformer as well, you can have your legs in the leg springs or your feet in the reformer straps reaching long through your legs, and then curl the upper body up. And this time the resistance is in the legs, not in the arms. So there's some things that you can do with the 100 on the different pieces of apparatus. For another challenge, it can be fun to do the 100 on the Lynda chair. Obviously, if you have handles or shovel handles on your chair, you're going to take them off, and then you're going to have your client basically lying kind of sideways on the top of the chair so that they are using the width of the chair as the length under their spines. And just make sure their pelvis is solidly on the chair. And this is hard because you don't have a lot underneath you, right? So you're trying to feel where your shoulder blades are, feel the open collarbones, and deal with everything without a full mat underneath you for support. You can also do the 100 on any of the barrels, the high barrel, the spine corrector, or the small barrel. And again, you would be laying on top of the hump, going widthways, not forward, backward, so that your spine is right on top of that hump with this slope going down on either side. This can be very challenging, of course, because the hump is kind of pushing your spine up a little bit into extension, and you are trying to keep it kind of flat and flexed. Now, even with all of those, there are simple modifications and variations that you can also do for the 100. So what are those looking like? You can easily keep the head and shoulders down for the 100. Who would you do that with? You would do that for your clients with osteoporosis, possibly your clients with neck and shoulder issues, or anybody who shouldn't be going into forward thoracic flexion. Okay. If you're doing it on the mat, you can add hand weights. You can add a type 4. You can put a magic circle between the ankles. Hold it as you inhale, squeeze in on it as you exhale. So there's a number of things you can do there. You can also take bands or tubing, bring them around the bottom of your feet, cross the band or tube once, hold one end in each hand, straighten your legs, and start the pump there. Again, you're closing the kinetic chain, which can make things a little bit easier, but it's harder to control it because you're dealing with a band attached at hands and at feet. The type 4 from Physical Mind works really well for the 100, and there are lots of different wraps and things that we can do there. Now, my friends, for something really, really interesting, you can do the 100 standing. So if you're working with, say, somebody who is pregnant, or somebody who is having vertigo, or somebody who just really wants to work standing, you can have them start by doing it against the wall, right? You can bring the feet slightly forward, either keep both feet down and start the arm pumping, getting the back into the mat. You can curl the upper body forward and down if you want to a little bit to the tips of the shoulder blades. Again, you can recreate that same position you would supine. You can also do that with one leg lifted and then do half and do the other half with the other leg lifted. You can keep the upper body extended. right? And do the same exact work against the wall. And then you can take it off the wall and just do that standing on the floor. Once again, you can, just curl the upper back down a little bit, thinking about, again, the width of the collarbones and the shoulder blades. And you can and what I recommend doing is bending your knees slightly and reaching one leg forward, doing half, and then doing half with the other leg. So you get a little bit of a balance challenge there as well. You can also play with the cadence of your breath. Traditionally, we learn it as 5 counts in, 5 counts out, but you can also do the exercise 4 counts in, 6 counts out. You can also play with starting at 5-5, then going to, say, 4 counts in, 6 out, 3 counts in, 7 out, 2 counts in, 8 out, and then work your way back to the 5 and 5. So there's, ways you can change that. You can do things with your legs, even on the mat when you're in the 100. Say you can start the 100 with the legs together, and then you can go into lowering one leg and keeping one leg up, and then switching that. So there's just a number of things you can do. If you have clients who have a hard time with the arm work or have rotator cuff, issues or things where that's really not comfortable for them, they can just hold that position and do the breathing. But I love the 100. I love to teach the 100. And for your clients who just, need a good exercise that they can do on their own, on the daily, not with you, the 100 is a great one. I've also taught the 100 sitting, and I've taught the 100 sitting to clients of mine with Parkinson's when that's been bad and they can't really leave their wheelchairs for any reason. And when you're doing it on the chair, you're sitting up tall. You can still bring your heels together on the ground, reaching the arms down and long. You can keep the chest lifted, start the pumping and the breathing. You can lift both legs in front of you if your back and abdominals can support that. You can also keep one foot down, lift one leg up and do half, other leg up and do half. You can either keep your upper back completely extended, lifted, or you can come into that upper back curl, but again, staying wide through the collarbones and the shoulder blades. Still working the breath, still working all of those things. Okay. So, what I find for my clients is that the 100 serves a number of purposes. Okay. And not just for my clients. Like, I can remember when I first started doing Pilates at Purchase, if any of us got to class late or missed the 100, you were expected to complete your 100 before you joined the rest of the class. So say we were already, halfway through the roll up, that was fine. You came into class, you got down on the mat and did your 100, and then maybe did a couple of repetitions, like 1 or 2 of each of the following exercises in the series until you caught up with the group. If you teach more of the classical order, you will find that your clients will use the time of the 100 to get settled into their body in the workout. Like I said at the beginning, the 100 can just be a really good way of tuning into your body, your breath, and how you are feeling, on a particular day. So if you're up in that 100 and your neck is hurting and your flexion isn't feeling great, maybe your back's not feeling great, then maybe that in that particular mat workout, or that for that client in that particular workout, that moving forward, you're going to work a little bit more on extension, right? The 100 will tell you that. The 100 will also get the breath really started, right? So if you're in that position, your sacrum is nice and heavy, your hip bones are nice and wide, You are lengthened and curled up into that 100 position. You've got your breath going. You're feeling your rib cage moving in and out. You're feeling your diaphragm moving in and out. You're feeling your breastbone lifting. You're feeling the connection between your back and your legs, your back and your head. You're getting the arms moving, and it really is a great warm-up. I mean, it just is. Because again, it's small, it's contained, there's not a lot of huge movement, but there's enough internal movement that you're really starting to kind of stoke the fire for the rest of that workout. And in my book, there's nothing better that one would need at the beginning of a workout. So the 100, as a beginning exercise, and I don't mean beginner, I literally mean beginning. Like in Pilates, it always shows up at the beginning, and that's the reason why. Can you do the 100 later in a workout? Of course you can. Have I taught that sometimes? Of course I have. But if you want the benefit and the true benefit of feeling where the spine is, getting the abdominal muscles working, focusing on deep breaths, focusing on opening the chest, focusing on the connection of legs and head and back, really getting into the Pilates powerhouse, the 100 is the exercise that's going to do that for you and your clients. Now, I'm going to give you a few caveats here on your hundreds, okay? If you are teaching on more contemporary equipment, like you're at Club Pilates and you're teaching on a balanced body Allegro reformer, what I would like you to think about is you can't really do the 100 on all 4 springs on that equipment. And I'm going to tell you why, okay? Reason number 1 is there's lots of ball bearings in those wheels. Those reformers are extremely smooth, okay? So that means that as you're curling up and pushing forward into the straps, those wheels really want to pull you back. Whereas, like I said earlier, on the more classical machines, you don't have ball bearings in the wheels, so the wheels kind of stick. There's not as much pullback. So you have to, think about, if I'm getting pullback from those wheels, I need to go a little bit lighter in my spring, all right? Second consideration is that for a lot of contemporary trained teachers, you are taught to use the longer straps in a double loop, longer straps for feet and shorter straps for hands. But if you were mimicking the classical equipment, you would have feet in the shorter loops for something like short spine, feet in the longer loops for something like long spine, leg circles or frog, and you would have hands in the longer loops because remember the handles sit in front of the leather strap on a classical machine, right? So it's the longer piece that the hands go into. And if you use the longer strap, which I realize if you're teaching in a branded chain situation, you can't change that because it goes against their corporate rules. But in reality, your clients will have a much better time with supine arm work and with things like the 100 if their hands are in the longer loops versus the shorter loops. Just going there, just letting you know. I think that if you are in a full studio that you should, once your clients get used to the 100 on the mat and the reformer, start playing with it for them everywhere. Give them some arm springs, let them start to do the 100 with arm springs on the caddy. Give them, you're doing chair that day with them, some chair, have them do the 100 on top of that chair. Get them up on the barrel, trying to do the 100 there. Like, do the 100 in different positions. Obviously, if you got somebody who's 8 months pregnant, you're going to be doing the 100 in a different position with them. They're going to be standing. But just know that The 100 is valuable, okay? The 100 involves so much muscle and so much control and such good breathing. And I would like you to really consider always keeping the 100 at the beginning of the workout, okay? Always, always, always. And use that 100 for the people in your class and for your clients and for yourself as that check-in time. Where is my back? What are my ribs doing? How does my breath feel? Where do I feel constricted? Where do I feel okay? Where do I feel like I could use a little more work or a little more give or a little more strength or a little more flexibility in these movements? And then you can work on that in the rest of the workout, right? So I want you guys to remember that Pilates is a system, that there is a flow to the exercises, and we don't need everything to happen in one exercise. And it's okay to come into class a little creaky. It's okay to come up for that 100 and feel a little and not great about it. But I can promise you that as you're doing it, and as you're breathing and as you settle into that exercise, your body will respond. It will respond positively. It will respond well. Remember that the modifications and variations are always okay. It's always okay to put your head down if you need to. It's always okay to lift your legs up or bend them in a little more if you need to. It's always okay to make some modifications for the exercise. So I hope you found that helpful. Thursday, my friends, is going to be the 100th episode. I never thought I would get to 100 episodes, but here we are, right? So on Thursday, we are going to talk about the roll-up, okay? The roll-up will be happening. We'll talk about all the places where we do the roll-up, why we do the roll-up, how the roll-up can be hard, how we can make it easier, what those ways are, and, we'll go from there. So, my friends, if you love the podcast, if you love this episode, what would really help me out would be a rating and a written review, which you can leave a rating on Spotify. You can also answer my survey questions on Spotify, which are in the app. You can leave a rating and written review on Apple Podcasts, and you can also leave a written review on Podpage, which you can get to just by going to pilatesgoddess.com. Have a fabulous, fabulous rest of your day, and I will be back here with you on Thursday with the 100th episode on the roll-up. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Music brought to you by Nerd Salad. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, especially if you liked it. And please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.